verdade, não é pressão. Mas eu não aceito perder essa luta, velho. Eu não aceito, velho. Não aceito.
And then it's going to slowly but surely turn into what we saw in the last fight. It's going to be very similar.
The other thing I will say, Ankalaev, we've seen him a couple of times at the PI. He's working with some monstrous fighters.
He landed some clean shots. I think in this fight, they will both rock each other at some point. I think Ankalaev will rock him again.
Magomed Ankalaev bashes Alex Pereira ahead of UFC 320, firing shots that have ignited even more tension before fight night. Meanwhile, Robert Whittaker dismissed the idea that Alex Pereira's decision to skip seminars and public tours in favor of training would play any major role at UFC 320. According to Whittaker, Pereira has always managed those commitments before fights without issue. Instead, he emphasized that the real challenge lies in Magomed Ankalaev, calling him one of the toughest opponents in the division.
I saw that, but I think it's a bit of his MO. He's been doing that, fighting like that for a long time, I think. It's hard to say. Ankalaev's going to be a hard guy to pin down. I feel like Pereira's path to victory is to be less hesitant and just walk him down like he has everybody else. He needs to get behind his punches and make Ankalaev control that space, with the threat of hitting him.
However, Whittaker pointed out that Alex Pereira will leave himself vulnerable to takedowns if he applies that kind of pressure. He recalled that Ankalaev attempted 11 takedowns in their first fight, but failed to secure any. Whittaker explained that while Pereira's aggressive style is his best chance to win, it is also a double-edged sword that could backfire against a determined wrestler like Ankalaev.
But in doing that, he'll open himself up to takedowns. And Ankalaev, whilst he didn't get any of the takedowns in the first fight, he shot, I think, 11 times. So, and what does that fight look like if Ankalaev did get him down? I don't know. I think Pereira's path to victory is also kind of a double-edged sword.
In fact, Robert admitted he would not be interested in facing Magomed, calling him a nightmare match. Instead, he expressed more confidence about a potential fight with Alex Pereira, describing it as a fun challenge. Whittaker revealed he had his sights set on Pereira back when the Brazilian was competing at middleweight.
It would be. He'd be a nightmare. Let's see what happens with him and Pereira first. It wouldn't be bad. Might be fun. It's a fight that obviously I was in the kind of sights or vision back when he was a middleweight, so it's not out of the world.
On the other hand, Lucas Tracy stated that he confidently predicts a victory for Ankalaev. While acknowledging that Ankalaev is the safe pick on paper, he explained that a fair argument can be made that Pereira was not fully focused on his camp in their first meeting. However, Tracy noted that it is very rare for the much older fighter to come back and win the rematch.
I think Ankalaev is going to win this. I think that's the right pick. You got to pick Ankalaev in this one. There's a decent argument to be made for Pereira, given that he was traveling all over the world and just did not have a very focused training camp for that last fight. But listen, man, it's very rare that the much older fighter wins the rematch. Pereira is 38 years old. I believe Magomed's only 32. It's very rare that the older guy is going to win a rematch in this circumstance. And I think Magomed's going to be very confident after outstriking Alex Pereira in the first fight, even though it was very close. All right, I'm not going to sit there and act like it was a domination. It was extremely competitive.
Even so, Lucas gave Pereira credit, noting that many people overlook how competitive the first fight actually was. He pointed out that Pereira had strong moments in the 5th and 3rd rounds and even showed some dominance in the 2nd.
And I don't think people give Pereira enough credit for how competitive it was in the 5th and in the 3rd round. He got dominated in the 2nd with the boxing, but that was the only truly dominant round in the stand-up, at least for Magomed. But Pereira won the 1st round very clearly. The problem is, if Pereira fights really differently, because in that fight he was on the back foot, and Alex Pereira just does not fight nearly as well on the back foot as he does on the front foot. And Magomed's pressure, his awkward southpaw style where he's constantly parrying your lead hand to frustrate you, right? And then he's got the speed advantage. He's the better boxer. As the Weasel always says, straight punches beat looping punches. There were many moments where Ankalaev...
But still, Tracy further noted that Pereira's leg kicks have not been as effective against southpaws, pointing out that while Magomed absorbed plenty of them in the first fight, his movement was not significantly hindered. He added that if Pereira's kicks can find more success this time, it could completely change the dynamic of the game and rematch.
He's landed a lot of leg kicks on Magomed Ankalaev, and they didn't really have a profound effect. I think that there is something to be said about the southpaw stance. Pereira's leg kicks against these southpaws, they're not as effective. And Magomed got hit with a lot of them. His movement wasn't really hindered that much. Now, maybe, just maybe, Pereira's leg kicks are going to work this time, and if they do, I think it's a completely different fight. Because if you take the base out underneath one of these Speedy Gonzalez boxers, you take away a little bit of that footwork, they're totally different fighters, and that's where Pereira's game truly starts. If he can start chopping away at the leg kicks, you start focusing on all the pain happening in your calves, the next thing you know, that left hook is coming over the top.
In addition, Magomed Ankalaev stated that he views Alex Pereira the same way he would any other opponent. He admitted that he feels anger toward Pereira and made it clear that his only focus is to beat him when they meet on October 4th.
Не, я смотрю на него как на соперника, я зол сильно, я хочу его избить, я жду этого момента.
No, I'm looking at him just any other opponent. I'm just angry at him. I want to beat him up and finish him in the cage next week.
Moreover, Magomed added that while he once respected Alex Pereira both as a fighter and as a person, that respect is now gone. He explained that it was not Pereira's trash talk that crossed the line, but what he called blatant lies. Ankalaev made it clear that he has no respect for liars.
Как бойца, как человека, так как он говорит всякую ерунду, я понимаю, что бывает разное, бывает по факту, бывает как-то покусать, а он нагло говорит, врет, что то, что не было.
Honestly, up until recently, I had respect for him as a fighter, as a person, but I no longer respect him because he just... Okay, trash talk is something that you hype up the fight and you say something funny or maybe just to be salty, but when you lie to people and say that, oh, I saw him and he hid or he was hiding in a PI, the stuff like that he recently said, I don't respect people like that. Why would you lie about something that never happened, you know?
In response, Alex Pereira uploaded a training video showcasing his striking dominance, sending a clear message to Magomed Ankalaev that he will not hold the advantage in stand-up exchanges this time. Pereira looked locked in and fully focused, delivering shots with precision and authority as he sharpened his arsenal ahead of UFC 320.
Bonito esse jab pra cá. Saiu pouquinho mais de cabeça aí. 30 segundos. Show da rua aqui, chutando. Aí. 10 segundos. Boa. Tempo.
Furthermore, Alex, fully determined to come out on top, promised his camp that he would not lose under any circumstances. He committed to giving everything in training, making sure to pour his all into preparation for UFC 320. Building on that, Dan Hardy weighed in and noted that Pereira looked flat in their first meeting and struggled to get going, not out of fear, but because he could not find his rhythm. He compared it to Dominic Reyes, although not on the same scale. Hardy explained that Ankalaev was awkward on the front foot, while Pereira seemed content to wait for openings instead of pressing forward.
No, I think it's a very different fight this time around. You know, I think a little bit like, obviously not in the same capacity, but a little bit like Dominic Reyes. He just kind of looks a bit flat, and not that he was intimidated to open up, but he kind of couldn't get started. You know, Ankalaev was always kind of, he's a bit awkward and he's kind of on the front foot, and it was Pereira was waiting for him to open up to see what he was going to do.
However, Dan added that fans were not used to seeing Pereira the way they saw in the first fight. Hardy believes the dominant side of Pereira will return this time. He also pointed out that Ankalaev has been working with massive training partners, pushing the pace and preparing to bring more grappling into the fight. Hardy expects the clash to be explosive, with both men coming forward in very different ways.
It wasn't the confident Pereira that we see, you know, kind of walk forward and bully people. And I think that's going to be the version that we'll get this time around. The other thing I will say, you know, Ankalaev, we've seen him a couple of times at the PI. He's working with some monstrous fighters. I mean, he really has. He's brought in some big boys to work with. So I think he's going to be trying to push the pace as well. And I expect more grappling from Ankalaev. But I think it's going to be quite an explosive fight this time around.
Additionally, Dan said a recharged and refocused Alex Pereira is a dangerous sight for anyone. He mentioned that Pereira has been busy with outside activities and believes that it can be exhausting. He added that Pereira likely looks at Ankalaev as someone whose chin he can reach and take home. At the same time, Hardy believes Pereira underestimated the slickness and range management of Ankalaev in their first fight.
A recharged and refocused Alex Pereira is a scary, scary thing. And, side quests, in the background, that could be exhausting. I know I've spoke to a lot of people and they said, yeah, he was everywhere. He's at a lot of the events and he's doing this and that. And I would imagine he looked at Ankalaev and thought, I can find a way to this guy's chin and take it home. And, I just think maybe he underestimated the slickness and the range management of Ankalaev.
Meanwhile, Mike Bond stated that many fans wrongly label Magomed Ankalaev as a blanket-style grappler, when in reality, he has not landed a takedown in nearly half of his fights. He pointed out that Ankalaev's takedown accuracy sits in the 20s, meaning he is not the type of fighter who constantly shoots and drags opponents to the ground. Still, Bond warned that the threat remains constant and can resurface at any moment.
Which is so interesting too, because I know everyone loves to paint Magomed Ankalaev as some blanket grappler. He's not really that. He hasn't landed a takedown in half his fights. He's won half his UFC fights by knockout. I think his takedown percentage is in the 20%, 23%. So he's not this guy who's just shooting and getting you down every time. But you never know when that can come out a little more in full. What's the fine line you have to walk of, like you said, he was maybe thinking about it too much, and what if you go into this fight not thinking about it enough, and then Ankalaev is grappling more? That's the game.
Right.
Similarly, Rashad Evans explained that wrestling-based fighters require a unique type of conditioning, one that is tied to understanding their own rhythm inside a fight. He stated that a wrestler needs to know how many times he can shoot for takedowns before fatigue sets in, and once that point comes, he has to be comfortable with the feeling. According to Evans, if a fighter is not okay with that exhaustion, he risks losing composure and ultimately losing the fight.
Being somebody who was primarily a wrestling-based fighter, then I would strike. There's a certain kind of conditioning that you need to be able to know you can do, be able to know you can hit. It's one thing to do it in training, but it's a fight rhythm. I know that I can take somebody down a certain amount of times in a fight, and I'm gonna reach a point where I get really tired, and I gotta be okay with that feeling, because if you're not okay with that feeling, there's almost kind of a panic that happens when he's like, yo, I'm tired, and he's back up on his feet, and now...
Adding to that, Bedtime MMA believes this bout will be a big fight with both men rocking each other. He sees Magomed Ankalaev landing at the straight left hand again, just like in the first fight. He expects Alex Pereira to start more aggressively and enjoy early success, but says that aggression could leave him open to counters and takedown threats, or make him easier to take down this time. Bedtime MMA predicts the fight will begin competitively in Pereira's favor, before momentum shifts toward Ankalaev as the rounds go on.
I think Pereira and Big Ank are both going to rock each other. I think this did happen in the last fight. Honestly, I don't really think Pereira rocked Ankalaev, but he landed some clean shots. I think in this fight, they will both rock each other at some point. I think Ankalaev will rock him again, probably with a straight left hand just like last time. And I can see Alex Pereira starting out a little bit more aggressively and doing well early on, but then being kind of countered and maybe, threatened with more takedowns, or, maybe taken down a little bit more easily this time because he's more aggressive. I'll talk about it in my full fight prediction in another video, but I do think this fight will be start out a little bit more competitive and maybe more in Pereira's favor, and then kind of swing towards him.
Nevertheless, Lucas Tracy predicted that Alex Pereira would look to stay on the front foot, but warned that this approach could backfire. He explained that Pereira might get caught by Ankalaev's counters or forced to defend a takedown, which could gradually make the rematch play out much like their first encounter. In the end, Tracy picked Magomed Ankalaev to win by a 49-46 decision on the scorecards.
Then he's gonna get stung, or Magomed's gonna shoot a takedown, and then it's going to slowly but surely turn into what we saw in the last fight. It's going to be very similar. So I am going to pick Magomed Ankalaev by a 49-46 decision. I think they're going to be competitive rounds. I think Pereira's going to do his thing, but I just think Magomed wins at least a round or two with some kind of grappling exchange. And I do think Magomed, being the younger fighter, there's more room for improvement. He's going to have a lot of confidence knowing that he's outstruck Alex Pereira, because sure, he was confident going into that first fight, but you're also questioning yourself. You're also going to have those doubts, right? Now he's actually done it.
Finally, Dan Hardy said the key is confidence in his takedown defense. Hardy believes Pereira needs to move forward without being overly concerned about defending takedowns and wasting energy on constant sprawls. He pointed out that Pereira is coming in tremendous condition and has been fully locked in on his training. Hardy added that Pereira would still be facing heavy wrestling pressure, but sees his preparation and focus as a major factor in handling it.
Well, I mean, two things. One thing, I think he has to be confident in his takedown defense. I think he has to be confident to move forward and to you know, kind of eat up the canvas in front of him and not be too concerned about being, you know, defending takedowns and having to sprawl and waste energy doing that. So first of all, I think he's going to come in tremendous condition. I know the other day he was running up at Red Rock, you know, and that's a long run. He looks like he's putting the miles in on the road as well. So digging deep into his gas tank is going to be essential if he's under wrestling pressure, which I do think is likely in this fight.
With tensions at a boiling point and both fighters entering UFC 320 with chips on their shoulders, the stage is set for a volatile clash. Pereira has promised nothing short of total commitment, while Ankalaev enters with a sharpened edge fueled by personal disdain. Analysts remain split, with some backing Pereira's explosive power and others leaning toward Ankalaev's grinding pressure and tactical discipline. Let us know your thoughts and predictions in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video with more exciting updates.